Welcome to Tina Talks. Today, we are going to talk about why the word audit is such a dirty word. We have a guest today who has lots of experience in this arena, the auditing part, not the dirty part. Adrianne Marino is a senior quality engineer with 10 years of experience in aerospace and defense, specializing in AS 9100 compliance, audit leadership, and process improvement. She has led cross-functional quality initiatives across complex programs with a strong focus on root cause analysis, supplier quality, and continuous improvement. Adrianne is a certified quality auditor and project management professional, known for translating regulatory requirements into practical, effective systems. Her background also includes experience in legal and financial environments, bringing a very unique perspective on compliance, risk, and operational discipline. Welcome to Tina Talks, Adrianne Marino. Woo!
Thank you. I feel welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's a TGIF, so that's always good.
Awesome.
And how are
Yes,
you,
I'm
host?
good as well. I am excited because I've already released a Tina Talk this week, so the pressure's off there. So I can spend some time editing this, my first foray into the interview world, and wanting to make it as perfect as it can be because you're a very special guest for a plethora of reasons. And you're my first guest. So, again, welcome to Tina Talks. And let's start with just tell me about what your role in quality management systems. Tell me about your role.
Okay, in my current role, I'm a senior quality engineer in the aerospace and defense industry. I work heavily within quality management systems, primarily aligned to AS 9100. My role really sits at the intersection of compliance and practicality. I help translate customer and regulatory requirements into processes that teams can actually execute. That includes everything from developing control documentation that teams can actually execute, and managing corrective actions, to leading audits and driving continuous improvement initiatives across programs and suppliers.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Just a few everyday tasks. No big deal. In order to hold that position, what type of qualifications do you have?
Okay, you mentioned a few. So I am a certified quality auditor and a project management professional. I'm also trained as an AS 9100D lead auditor. In addition to that, I have training and hands-on experience with ISO 17025. That's for competence of testing and calibration laboratories. Also AS 9145, APQP. All my automotive people will know about that. And I also hold a Six Sigma green belt, and I have completed training for CMMI and to support as appraisal team member, and Baldrige examiner.
All right, everybody. Well, that's enough today. No, I'm just kidding. That's amazing. Just out of curiosity, and for our audience that may not know, when you say certified quality auditor, is there a particular organization that's providing that certification?
Yes, that's the ASQ. On the spot, I can't remember the acronym. Uh,
American Society for Quality.
There it is, American Society for Quality. Thank you so much. It's really funny because I have a really good friend that lives in Milwaukee, and one day we were just walking by to get brunch, and their headquarters was right there. And so I took a picture of the ASQ headquarters. I've actually been there. But yes, that is who I have my CQA and my green belt through.
Is this the same friend that I think it is?
Yes.
Oh,
Who,
okay.
who
Well, I might have to pop over there the next time I visit her.
I know. I was like, maybe I can get some training and schedule some testing.
Love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a great plan.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, in your role, I know you do a lot of, I call it interpretation, right? Like I always feel like I'm translating the standard into fairly regular speak for the actual teams that have to do the work. So I have jokingly said, I speak auditor, so that it's a frame of reference that a lot of people get because reading a quality standard is not your everyday bedtime reading, for sure, unless you're really
It
looking
should
to
be.
go to
It's
sleep as quickly as possible.
yeah.
And then as I've been discussing with my audience here, everything is comprised of another acronym for this, and that leads to another acronym for this. And, it just takes you down a particular special kind of rabbit hole. So, what types of audits have you been responsible for performing?
Sure. I'm going to answer that in just a second. I have an anecdote about all the acronyms. So you mentioned that I have a diverse background. I didn't always participate in QMS. Um, but so my second day on the job, I get invited to a bunch of meetings, and I had no idea what these meetings were, and because it was my first foray into the quality world, and all these engineers are just talking, a group of engineers are talking, and they weren't speaking English. They were speaking English, but the amount of acronyms that I was being introduced, the note taking was fervent. And I went back to my desk and typed them all up and tried to find everything I could on the company website to try to make sense. But it's funny now, looking back 10 years later, that I too am a acronym speaker.
Well, let me tell you, it's so funny to hear you say that about what your first day was like. You literally just described mine. I was working, my first foray into aerospace was on a NASA contract. And so I worked with the program management office. And so, as you might imagine, there's all kinds of meetings that you have to attend for that. So, I'm ready. I'm educated. I've got my college degree and head on into this meeting room. And everyone started speaking. And I just went, oh, okay. And I just started writing down all the acronyms and then looking up the acronyms, when we went back and everyone's like, how do you think it went? And I went, I think it went great. I think I've got everything. I had no idea what they were talking about. Thankfully, there was a lovely lady that was part of the NASA team. I was a contractor employee that said, "Hey, I'm going to send you a couple links." And there was actually like a website specific for NASA abbreviations. And I couldn't have been more grateful in my whole
Yeah.
life than for that link because I've never been like, oh, I'm going to read a dictionary today, but I sure did read the whole acronym website so that I could have any kind of level of understanding of what might be happening as we move forward with any other meetings.
Oh
So,
yeah. Any new hires, any new internal auditors that I help onboard, I immediately send them the acronyms website for our company. I It's a very helpful tool.
yes, absolutely. It should be standard issue for all new employees.
Um, but I
So
can answer your
we were
question.
saying, yes, what audits do you perform in your current role?
Sure. So, I've conducted a wide range of audits, mostly internal QMS audits, supplier audits, compliance audits that align to the AS 9100D primarily, and customer specific requirements. I've also supported external audits, worked both on CONUS and OCONUS audit activities. A big part of my audit work isn't just identifying gaps, it's making sure corrective actions are meaningful and actually improve the process.
Good. There's nothing then that I hate more than process for the sake of process and corrective actions for the sake of, filling in something on a form, just to be able to show evidence during another audit. So thank you for expressing that. And gosh, whoever mentored you really did an amazing job. So let's give a kudos to them as well. Okay, so based on those different types of audits,
Mhm.
do you feel like you're getting similar or different reactions from those groups? So I heard,
Mm,
if you're doing internal audits, obviously you're talking about potentially colleagues, other people that work for the same organization that you do.
mhm.
Supplier audits, obviously they don't work for your organization other than contractually. And then in supporting an external audit, obviously that's a different sort of. Oh,
Yeah,
so what type of reactions do you get from, any of those three groups?
that's a great question. You do, as an auditor, have to be very mindful of what your role is. And it's a game, right? You're both the customer in a way, and but you're also, how do I put this? Like, you need people to do something for you, but it goes the other way around. They need to do something for you. So it's a funny thing. And I've seen a number of reactions, which usually corresponds directly with the company's culture with respect to quality.
Oh,
That's a really big difference. So some of the differences between, let's say, an internal audit versus a supplier audit. So with an internal audit, um, I would say people probably already are familiar with you or your department, hopefully. Again, company culture.
hopefully.
So they might be a little bit more comfortable, or there's a little less of a threshold between you. Because we are all a part of the same team ultimately when you're in the same company. Whereas suppliers, it is more formal. So they might treat you in a more formal manner at times.
Hmm.
And it really depends. I mean, you see it all as an auditor.
Have So internally,
Mhm.
my experience has been that I either get people that react in one of two ways.
Mm.
Audit? Did you say audit? Oh my God, what do I have to do? Uh, are you going to write me up? Or, okay, Tina, you're coming to town. Do you want to go to lunch? Like, what time do we want to do this or that? Or do you want to meet the new people in the department? And I've seen that dichotomy. It's really what I've experienced, one or the other
Mm.
completely. So if they're familiar with you, if they've, been subject to an internal audit before, fingers crossed they didn't have a horrible experience
Mm.
in the previous audit. So they're, generally welcoming of what you do. Conversely, some people just react to the word audit and immediately freak out. Have you had the same kind of experience?
Absolutely. So I was going to say, even in strong organizations, people tend to associate audits with being evaluated or caught doing something wrong. Um,
Yes.
and whereas I bring a philosophy that it's really more of an opportunity to improve. And that said, once you build relationships and establish trust, those reactions do start to change.
That's an excellent point and something that I've really worked at in my years of experience as an auditor is to really, especially if I'm doing an internal audit, I want people to feel comfortable. And so I always tell them, hey, I'm here to figure out how things are going. I'm here to figure out if the processes are working the way we expect them to. And if they're not, let's identify that now so that we can address it. Also, I try to always bring up, so if I find it, all the better, because then the external auditor isn't going to necessarily bring it up. And even if they do, we can probably show actions that are already being taken as part of a corrective action so that it's not something that they would write up and affect really the company's certification as a whole.
Mm.
That's it sounds like we have a similar philosophy in what we try to bring to internal audits. What about supplier audits? What kind of reaction do you get from those folks?
So again, it varies. Um, but as far as their reaction to even being audited, they typically know it's coming, or hopefully they know it's coming. It's hopefully communicated that it's a part of the contract, or it's a procedural, or a lot of times an audit happens because there's an issue. And so that
Mm,
might happen later. That might just be as a result of investigating further. Um, or it might be that you're returning after initial audit to verify how things have been done, validate the effectiveness. Hopefully, it's not a surprise, but I have seen when they're surprised, and usually I'm just as surprised that they're surprised. Um, but hopefully,
who are
you're, so the most positive would be that they anticipate you coming and they're willing to work with you. But I have seen the opposite of that, where if they didn't know, they're surprised, they're not happy about it, you're in their way. So,
mm, they're just trying to get the work done, right? That they're performing.
yeah,
You have to come check up on me. Who are you?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Why do you think people react to the word audit? You actually alluded to this already, that it feels like almost a judgment of some sort,
Mm.
or, you're checking up on somebody's work. Um, why do you think that that is people's reaction to hearing the word audit?
Well, I think it comes down to how audits have historically been positioned. In a lot of environments, audits have been used more as a policing function rather than a
Mm,
partnership. If people have had experience where audits led to blame or punitive actions, that sticks with them. There's also a natural fear of the unknown. People worry about what they might have missed and how it reflects on them. Again, I can't stress enough the company culture that supports corrective actions and that supports audits and understands them as a function of the system and not a result.
is that primarily the culture at your current organization?
Yes,
That's great.
yes, yes.
That's really fantastic.
I'm very fortunate where I can go on a production floor in any given day and just start asking line workers questions. And they will know. They will just go, okay, because they're so used to being audited. Just
Oh,
as an
nice.
example. So there's so many different types of audits happening um, that people are really used to it. I mean, you still come across, the problem children, if you will. But
What?
but I would say as a whole, I find my current organization very supportive and positive toward quality and auditing.
How about you yourself? You mentioned supporting external audits. I'm curious to know if there's a specific memory that stands out, not just with your current organization, but any organization you've worked with. What might have been the worst experience that you've had with an external auditor?
Uh, no comment.
You don't have to mention any names. We can protect the innocent.
Um, I my with an external auditor specifically. I think that they could be unprofessional at times in the room. And and what I mean in the room is I mean outside of interviewing. Because
Mm,
when you're supporting external audits, you, as the quality support, are there with the external auditors, usually,
mm-hmm.
all the time. You're escorting them typically. So there's a lot of downtime between interviews. And so when you're in the room with that external auditor, I have a few memories of some questionable professionalism at play.
I certainly can see that happening. I had a couple just pop into my mind as you were relaying that information. So, what do you think as an auditee? What was an example of if anything stands out as your best experience with an
As an
audit
auditee or as an
as an
auditor?
auditee? As an
Okay,
auditee
as an
first.
auditee, a best experience. It's funny, my current boss, she really enjoys when I do training. She's like, "You're so good at it." She goes, "You just turn it on." And so I could be kind of nervous sometimes, have some performance anxiety. But when I'm teaching others on a more one-on-one basis, I can really connect, I try to connect and walk people through things. And so I would say when I'm being audited on certain things, it becomes more of that, like where I feel like I'm explaining it. This is like a
Oh,
teaching moment. I don't know.
it
I'm thinking of
is.
a very specific process. So I forgot to mention I'm also a guide up representative. So that's one
Oh,
thing.
but wait, that's not all, folks. She's also a guide up representative.
I'm a guide up representative, and it's one of those things that everybody knows a little bit about, or a majority of people have at least heard of it. So they're familiar, but very few people seem to really understand what it is, the database, the systems that are in place, the purpose. And I always get audited for that, whether it's by, whatever AS 9100 or DCMA, DCSA, whoever they come in, they have those questions. And so I'm like, buckle up, let me show you what I got. So I think that's also, as an auditor, I try to be the auditee that I want.
Oh,
Right? Like
okay.
talking slow so they can record the answers, not giving too much information, not moving on too quickly. But also explaining it, I try to have examples in mind already in case they don't know where to steer me, but also, you know, have things pulled up already, so they can select from a sample, that kind of stuff.
All right, I see what we're talking about. You're an auditor's dream, let me tell you. Um, all right, what do you think are some tips and tricks that you might give to other auditors to help put their auditees and the people they're interacting with at ease?
So I think one of the biggest things is how you frame the audit from the beginning. I try to be very clear that our goal is to evaluate the process, not the person. I also make it conversational, rather than an interrogation. And I try to explain, not only the scope of what I'm auditing at the very beginning, but I have a little script, here's our scope. If you have any questions or I'm not making sense, please let me know. And the other thing that I do is I always remind them, you're the expert. I'm not the expert. I'm not here to tell you about your job. I'm asking questions. I'm showing how good you are at your job. So, I kind of come at it from a humble point. Listen, I am an expert in auditing and
Mm.
quality standards, but I am not an expert in these, every single
Insert
process.
generic here.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in all the things that I have to audit and evaluate.
For sure. I think it's really important for auditors to give some space to their auditee. It's for a couple of reasons. And I think that it is important to frame, you're exactly right, frame that audit from the very beginning that, hey, I just trying to figure out what you do so
Mm-hmm.
that I can look at the process and see if the process is working effectively. I also think that making sure people have instructions ahead of time, like, hey, you don't have to fill every ounce of space. I might be quiet because I'm taking notes or making sure I attribute what information you've just provided to the correct clause of the standard. Things like that, so that they know they don't have to keep talking because a lot of people nervous talk. And I think it's important that they know, we can have some space here. So just answer the question. I'm going to take some notes as you're answering, perhaps for a couple of moments after you answer, and then we'll move on to the next area so that they don't over communicate and
Mm-hmm.
open any doors to pathways they really don't want us to go down.
Sure. And also, reminding them, like you said, it's better if I find it rather than an external auditor finding things, and let me help you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also really love to end my audits, if time allows, asking for feedback. Like,
Mm.
hey, is there, this went really great for me, even if it, was maybe subpar. Just like, hey, this was so great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Just curious, do you have any feedback for me? The process leading up to the internal audit, is there something I could do better or prepare better for next time? Or I'll ask them if there's anything I missed. Are there any opportunities for improvement that we didn't cover? That I can go ahead and include in my report. I think breaking down, breaking things down, creating a rapport, making people feel comfortable. I used to say, how the animal is more scared of you than you are of it.
Oh, that's
So
a good point.
yeah, so I would be like, I want to do a good job, I want to be a good auditor, so I'm scared. I'm the animal, I promise. I look like I got fangs, but or not look, but the position,
Hopefully not. Are you dressing up for your audits? I mean, I don't
the
know.
position of auditor can be very intimidating, and being
Yes,
audited is an intimidating process, even for me. It very much can be. So I think just remembering or keeping in mind how they may be feeling, which I mean, that goes for a lot of things in life, keeping in mind how the
sure.
other person might be feeling and putting them at ease, and building that rapport, and then following up any questions that they have with action. Don't just take it and throw it into the void.
Yeah.
Be their champion for things where you can. I know we all have limitations, but I think that goes a really long way in proving your effectivity,
Hmm.
their trust, building their trust.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. When you express to them, hey, are there opportunities for improvement that we haven't covered in what we've talked about in the audit? They might have something just sitting there on the tip of their tongue. And a lot of times, I think we might be the suggestion box, if you will, for them to get those ideas pushed forward.
Mm.
Because, if it's something that is applicable, it ends up in the audit report, and hopefully that gets read, or at least, you know, informed to management of that department and perhaps even above. So, hopefully you want that to go as far as it can. And a lot of times you may even be able to assist in following up and verifying that that opportunity might have had a fair shake, if you will,
Mm.
and perhaps got implemented or at least heard, and potentially it's something that goes in the budget for next year or something along those lines. So I
Yeah.
think that's an excellent tip and trick, if you will, for getting people to be put at ease.
More
So,
receptive to you coming.
absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think that there are any particular trainings that you've had that could be something that should be standard for
Oh
auditors out there?
gosh, I think training should go beyond just the standard and checklist. Technical knowledge is important, but soft skills are just as critical. Things like communication, emotional intelligence, and how to ask effective questions. Sometimes questions, and there's so many different tactics, right? Like with auditing, you can ask a really broad question and you're doing that on purpose, but sometimes that's going to lead them into a whole different thing. And you're like, no, 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 come back, come back. So, uh, you know, being able to ask questions that aren't leading the witness, but are still getting you where you need to be. I think that's a really big skill. I'd also recommend more emphasis on understanding the process being audited. Again, I've audited rocket scientists. I'm not a rocket scientist, but there
But you
you
play one on TV.
um you're funny. But I mean, if you can get a base level understanding for the process that you're auditing, you, at least in my experience, have more confidence
Mm,
performing the audit. Um, so I think the best auditors are the ones who can connect requirements to real world application. And through that, they can identify opportunities and not just problems. I think it's that having those skills definitely takes time. Um,
very well stated. Very well
yeah,
stated.
yeah, well, thanks. But yeah, so that's it.
Well, awesome. Well, I must say thank you, a huge thank you to you, Ms. Adrianne Marino, for your time today and your willingness to share your expertise from the world of auditing. I know that in my experience, I've had good audits and I've had bad audits, and I've been on both sides of the table, so to speak, as the person getting asked those questions and not knowing what to expect and freaking out, or the person that's really working to put the other party at ease
Mm.
and just having that casual conversation to see how things are really going. So I absolutely appreciate your perspective and your joining us today. So thank you so much. And now I will just ask the audience if you appreciated Miss Marino's insight as much as I did. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments if there's any additional questions that you might like answered, and we'll see if maybe she might share a little bit more knowledge, or maybe I'll answer them for you. But thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thanks for having me.